Good morning. Whether you are here in person or watching at home, it's good to be with you this morning. It's good for all of us to be together. As we gather together this morning, let me share words from Shihai Batista, 23, a Mexican climate activist and a member of the indigenous Antami community. A vibrant, fair, and regenerative future is possible. Not when thousands of people do climate justice activism perfectly, but when millions of people just do the best they can. We are on earth to take care of life. We are on earth to take care of each other. Come, my friends, with our hearts open to both the challenges and possibilities that this new day and this new week bring, with our hearts open to all that inspires, sustains, redeems, and transforms us. Come, let us worship together. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the liberal religious tradition to which this congregation belongs. Will those of you here in person please stand as you are able for the chalice lighting? If you have a chalice at home, I welcome you to light it with me at this time. Please join me in saying the words on the screen. As we kindle this flame, we recommit ourselves to nurturing the spirits of one another and the common good of the world we share. May the light of this flame be welcoming to all who seek a liberal religious home. For those of you already standing, I invite you to remain standing for the opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace. Gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store, nurtured in love and conscience refined, with hearty and spirit united what's more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the Spirit growing in all, drawn by the moon and fed by the sun, winter to spring and summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion, and strength. Gather to celebrate once once again.
Good morning. My name is Karen Jones. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm glad to serve as part of the worship team this morning. Whether you are a first-time visitor or a long-time member, I'd like to offer you a special welcome. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Raleigh, we are intentionally inclusive, liberally religious, and actively serving the common good of our shared world. Whoever you are and wherever you are on your own religious journey, you are welcome here. This morning, Eleanor Goodwin, one of our lay ministers, will be available in the Wiggle Room in the back and after service to talk with anyone who might be experiencing some difficult circumstances and would like to talk with somebody. I hope all of you have read through the chalice you received by email Friday about everything happening here at UUFR, or you can check out the upcoming events section of the website. Our annual retreat is Spirit Fest, and it's coming up Labor Day weekend. All are invited to join. Okay. You can come for the whole weekend or just a day and enjoy relaxing in nature, have fun kayaking, swimming, and there are workshops such as folk dancing with Jean Marie or dream interpretation with Reverend James. Registration is required for everyone and closes in less than 2 weeks on Friday, August 8th. There will be a table set up with flyers and photos in the lobby downstairs after service where you can learn more. Our in-person social hour this morning will be downstairs in Founders Hall. Today at 11:30, the third and final workshop for our climate justice revival will take place right here in the sanctuary. The tables were probably a giveaway. If you're planning to attend, there's no need to go elsewhere. Cold beverages will be served during the workshop, but if you'd like coffee, there will be time to go downstairs quickly and get some before we start. Parents who would like to use childcare during the workshop can drop their children off in 201 Peace Hall next door. Please be sure to sign your children in and out. I now invite you to meet and greet your neighbor. Thank you. And we can continue conversations during social hour. This is the time in our service when we acknowledge some of the joys and sorrows of our community. We do this because we believe a joy shared is a joy made greater, and a sorrow shared is made easier to bear. Katie Holmes shares her sorrow at the passing of her mother, Barbara Holmes, this past Sunday. Katie is also grateful that Barbara was able to share in the joy of her granddaughter Tia's wedding this past Friday. May we hold Tia, Katie, Barbara, and all in our hearts during this time of transition. As we hold this sorrow and other shared joys and sorrows in our hearts and reflect on the joys, sorrows, fears, and hopes of our own lives, let us be together in stillness and silence, opening ourselves to the Spirit within us and amidst us, called by many names, but known to every human heart, that leads us to a fuller, deeper, richer experience of life. After the silence, we'll sing hymn 123, Spirit of Life. But now, let's be together in stillness and silence.
Good morning. My name is Russ Outcalt, and I'm a member of your board of directors. Normally, I would be downstairs at social hour after the worship for any questions that you might have or would like to ask me about the board or any comments. But today, I'm going to lead our Climate Revival workshop, so I hope to see you there. But please look for any board member or welcome committee member at the coffee hour for questions, comments, and anything you'd like to share with us board members. Well, everything we do at UUFR is only possible because of the generous financial support so many of us provide. For those of you who have set up automated giving to UUFR or who send in a check by mail every month, I'd like to thank you now for your generosity. Now, here at UUFR, we designate one Sunday each month as a Justice Sunday, and all the money collected during our offering is given to a local or national nonprofit organization. Today is our Justice Sunday, and our Justice Council has designated Common Cause North Carolina as the recipient of today's offering. And I believe Becky Harper is going to tell us a little bit more about Common Cause.
Good morning. It's a joy to speak to you this morning. I'm a member of the Common Cause Board of Directors, and so I have been involved with this organization for many years now. Common Cause is a nonprofit, grassroots, nonpartisan, pro-democracy organization. We are active in all 100 counties in North Carolina, and we have over 30,000 members across the state. For decades, Common Cause has led the efforts against gerrymandering in our state. And this is an ongoing fight. Many of you know that my name was on a series of lawsuits about gerrymandered electoral districts, Harper v. Lewis, Harper v. Hall, Moore v. Harper, that eventually went to the United States Supreme Court. That was a 5-year roller coaster ride through the courts that that had some great victories and some heartbreaking defeats. But the fight on gerrymandering is ongoing. There is actually a case in the North Carolina courts right now that's not getting much publicity, so you may not know about our partner, the NAACP versus Berger, which was heard by a 3-judge panel in Winston-Salem just a few weeks ago. This case is about racial gerrymandering, which is one of the last legal arguments that can be made on this issue. And we expect a decision late this summer or early in the fall. If we are victorious, it's possible that we could have new districts drawn in North Carolina for the 2026 election. Common Cause staff were expert witnesses at that trial. Common Cause led the fight to certify the election of Justice Allison Riggs to the state Supreme Court last year. The losing candidate, Jefferson Griffin, attempted to throw out the votes of 65,000 North Carolinians after the votes were cast. Common Cause organized a behind-the-scenes effort to get legal experts, academics, judges, leading lights at law firms across the political spectrum, Republicans and Democrats, to speak out about the arguments that Judge Griffin was making. And that was successful. The courts did rule against Griffin, and Justice Riggs was able to take her seat on the state Supreme Court. North Carolina is home to the most, to 10 historically black colleges and universities. That is the highest number of any state in the country. And Common Cause has been active on the HBCU campuses for more than 20 years. We fund democracy fellows on all 10 campuses. These activists on campus organize students and events. They bring groups of students to the legislature here in Raleigh and encourage students to begin a life of meaningful civic engagement and to use the power of their voices and their votes. This summer, we tried something really new, in an attempt to reach out to young people who we feel strongly need to be engaged in the process. Common Cause organized 4 arts and music festivals across the state called Carolina Days. I had never heard of any of the performers. It was not targeted to me, but they were very successful, engaged with thousands of young people. All of the performers spoke about the importance of voting. There was opportunities to register to vote and get on mailing lists and so forth. There were concerts. The Raleigh one was at the Red Hat Amphitheater, and we also had events in Wilmington, Greensboro, and Charlotte. Yeah. Common Cause has become kind of a central clearinghouse for all of the many wonderful organizations who operate in this space. Common Cause was fortunate to receive some very large donations from individuals and foundations last year, and we did not staff up and try to do all of this work ourselves. We gave the money away to dozens of other organizations that have boots on the ground and are working in these spaces in places across the state. So hopefully these slides are up here. Some of the many organizations that received money, many of them are organizations that you're involved in with, like Planned Parenthood, Democracy NC, You Can Vote, many campus organizations, etc. Received grants from Common Cause in advance of the 2024 election. We continue to work at the legislature to be the voice of the people. You can imagine this is an uphill battle these days, but there are all kinds of proposals at the legislature that would restrict early voting, that would limit polling places, that would make it more difficult to register, that would instruct the boards of elections in their newly constituted form to not encourage people to vote. Our staff continues to speak out against these measures. So it is an ongoing struggle. It is easy to be discouraged, but we are still working every day on these issues, and we appreciate your support. UUFR has been an important supporter of Common Cause for many years, and we are very, very grateful for your support. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. That was great. Okay, well, if you would like to make a contribution in person this morning, we invite you to bring it forward and put it in one of our offering plates. If you would prefer to have an usher come to you, please raise your hand. And you can also give using one of the methods that I think will soon be on our screen. Our offering will now be given and gratefully received. Thanks, James. That was beautiful. And I guess I could say, let's thank Billy and James for all the music, and Tatiana for all the music we've had this morning. Well, our guest speaker this morning is Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson. Reverend Lisa is the Executive Director of Unitarian Universalist Justice North Carolina, where, in her words, she joyfully organizes UUs across 28 North Carolina congregations to powerfully contribute to the movement for justice through spiritual grounding, imagination, and partnership. If you've ever been to one of her Friday action hours, it's 11 a.m. every Friday, make a note, you know that that's true. She has a mighty commitment to justice, but she fights for it with joy and love. We're delighted to have Reverend Lisa return to UUFR to lead our final Climate Justice Revival service, focusing on transformative actions. Please give her a warm welcome back to UUFR.
Thanks, Russ. Appreciate the stool, by the way. Russ, you got a couple inches on me. This morning's reading is a story that you maybe have heard before. This is an adapted retelling by Erie Chapman. So there once were two villages on the banks of a powerful stream. There was a village upstream and a village downstream. One day, the people of the village downstream saw a man from the upper village being swept down the water, calling out for help. Luckily, there were a lot of strong swimmers in the downstream village, and two people jumped in and saved him. The next day, 3 more people from the upstream village came floating by, yelling for help, and again, someone dove in to save them. These incidents kept occurring again and again for weeks and months and years until it got to a point when no one could remember a time when this didn't happen. The downstream village became even more skilled at rescuing the people upstream. One afternoon, a young girl was sitting by herself at the stream bank watching people get plucked out of the water. And she looked over and saw a man who had just been saved drying off on a nearby rock. So she went up to him and she asked him something that no one else had ever asked. She said, "Sir, why do y'all keep falling in the water?" And the guy said, "Oh, well, you see, our town is built along a cliff, and whenever it rains a lot, people slip into the stream. You see, unlike your village, none of us are good swimmers. Hiking is our thing. So we're really grateful to your village for always saving us." The girl said, "Okay, well then why don't you just build a fence?" And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, well we've tried that, but we're a pretty small village and we don't have enough people to ever finish building the fence before the rain comes again and knocks it down." Then the man said goodbye and started his long hike back up to his village. For a while, the girl sat there with the wheels turning in her head, and then suddenly she got an idea and jumped up and ran home to her dad, and she said, Dad, they fall in the stream because of the rain, and if we help them build a fence, we wouldn't need to save them anymore." And the dad said, "Listen, sweetheart, you're too young to understand this, but it's always been this way. And we're good swimmers, so we don't mind always saving them. But we're terrible hikers, and even if a couple of us could get up to their village, we don't know how to build a fence." The girl was not satisfied with her dad's answer. Again, the wheels turned in her brain, and again she got an idea, and she took off running, and she spent the rest of the day talking to every other kid in the village. The next morning, before dawn, all the kids headed out of the village, each leaving a note on their kitchen table that simply said, going upstream. When the parents of the children woke up and found these notes, scared for the well-being of their kids, they too all began to trek upstream. They hiked and hiked farther than they could imagine they ever could until they reached the edge of the upstream village. And when they got to the center of town, their kids were there waiting for them, along with all the people from the upstream village. The girl stepped forward, gave her dad a big hug, and said, "We're glad you followed us. Now grab a hammer. We have a fence to build." The end. Well, good morning again. It is such a joy to be here with you all at UUFR. And again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Lisa Garcia-Sampson. I proudly lead your Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. UU Justice NC organizes UUs to powerfully contribute to our state's movement for justice, and we do so by working in close relationship with UU congregations like yours and our beloved statewide justice partners. Specifically, we are proud to belong to a massive movement ecosystem that is Blueprint North Carolina. It is a network of over 120 organizations, including Common Cause North Carolina, moving in formation with shared values and shared strategies. And in this coalition, we work to change the material conditions of people in our state. Like in 2023, when after a decade of fighting, we finally expanded Medicaid to over 630,000 people in this state. We are also committed to the work of creating an inclusive, multiracial democracy through our nonpartisan electoral work. Last year, UU the Vote was by far the largest activation of UUs in the history of our state. With absolutely over 1,100 UUs across 22 congregations, that is 1 in 5 UUs in the state of North Carolina, got involved, and together we reached out to over 100,000 voters in this state through phone banking, door knocking, voter registration drives, and postcards. And we helped to develop our movement's first ever rapid response safety network statewide, responding to reported threats of violence at the polls. We are not playing, y'all. We are here to win. Additionally, UU Justice NC works in very close relationship with our national UU partners to support congregations like yours around issues like LGBTQ welcome and inclusion, safety and security through this fall's 6-part congregational and community safety series, and of course, around the issue of climate justice, which is what I am excited to be here to talk to you about today. This spring, UUs across the country gathered to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the Green Sanctuary Program. And if you don't know the UUA's Green Sanctuary Program, it organizes our congregations to take action on climate justice and take certain steps to achieve Green Sanctuary certification. Y'all are like, oh yeah, we've been there. But a lot has changed since the 90s, when the program launched. The severity of the climate crisis, for one, and the way that we are called to think about and take action around our environment has changed too. For a long time, a large focus of the Green Sanctuary certification process was the sustainability practices of our congregations themselves. Things like energy efficiency, reducing waste, purchasing sustainable products, and these things remain important. But what we have also learned over the years is that this overemphasis on personal responsibility was and still is a strategy used by the oil and gas industry to keep us so focused on ourselves that we don't come for them. So while these congregational practices of sustainability are still hugely important, in recent years, the Green Sanctuary program has evolved and gone on to embrace a far broader understanding of what it means to create climate justice. As Russ mentioned a few moments ago, today we conclude UUFR's 3-week climate justice revival. Can we give a massive round of applause for Russ? Your commitment to climate justice is relentless. We are all so grateful for your leadership, and we've got your back. This month, in the work that you are doing and concluding today, you have joined over a dozen congregations in North Carolina and over 300 congregations across Unitarian Universalism who have held revivals as part of this new program with the UUA Side with Love team. Let me be clear, we have never, as an association, ever done anything remotely close to this scale before. The climate justice revivals are a bold, imaginative call to action that have brought hundreds of congregations together in a way that has never been seen before in our faith. These revivals focus on a new set of 4 essentials to advancing climate justice. And while each represents a particular area of climate action, they are, of course, all deeply interconnected. Community resilience, justice, mitigation, and congregational transformation. And I think it's helpful to think about these 4 essential elements through the lens of today's story. In the story, we have a village upstream and a village downstream. And for as long as people could remember, the folks upstream had been falling into the water, floating down the village to the village downstream and needing to be rescued. But luckily, the folks downstream were good swimmers. So they created a system that they were comfortable with that was effective in helping their neighbors. But notice in the story that they never tried to figure out why their neighbors needed to be saved. Until that young girl asks the question and imagined a different way forward and pushed her village to go beyond their comfort zone. So looking through the lens of these 4 essentials to climate justice, first we can see that the village downstream was engaging in community resilience, in that they had created a system to care for those being harmed. But we also must recognize the limits of their care and that they were not in deep enough relationship with their neighbors and never thought to ask them why they needed to be rescued, or how it affected their lives, or what other support they could offer. So let's give them half points for that, shall we? The next is justice. The second element within our UU climate justice framework is when we partner with those harmed to help build a thriving community. In the story, that partnership began the way most partnerships do, with a single conversation between 2 people. In this case, between the young girl and the man who has just been rescued. And it ultimately results in the 2 villages coming together to build a fence, and that brings us to number 3, mitigation. By building the fence, they actually address the root cause of the problem. They accomplished something together that the upstream village could not have accomplished on their own, and were successful in mitigating harm by vastly reducing the number of people who were swept into the water when it rained. And finally, the element of community transformation. For many years, that downriver village was certainly committed to helping their neighbors, but did so in a way that felt comfortable to them. And I think we can all think of a time when we have helped our neighbors or taken action on a justice issue, but didn't want to go beyond our comfort zone or push what we believe to be the limits of our capacity, yes? The father in the story says, we're terrible at hiking. We'll never make it up there. So let's just stick to swimming. But the young girl knows that the only way to create real change, real solidarity, real justice is to hike up to that neighboring village. That is what we are called to do. And today, there are so many ways that we can take powerful action in all 4 of these categories. So let's talk about it. We know that President Trump has undone the progress made by the Biden administration's Inflation Reduction Act, the largest investment in renewable energy in the history of our country. And on top of that, we need to recognize the fact that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency as we knew it, does not exist anymore. We need to tell the truth about that. Just this week, the New York Times is reporting that the EPA is said to have drafted a plan that would, quote, eliminate the bedrock scientific finding that greenhouse gas emissions threaten human life by dangerously warming the planet. Let that sink in for a second. The time for robust federal protections, at least for now, is over. And it is up to us to fight for mitigation at a state level. And by a mile, the biggest opportunity we have to mitigate harm and reduce emissions in North Carolina is to be a part of a statewide movement to hold Duke Energy accountable to their commitments to transition to renewable energy. That is it. Back in 2021, Duke Energy made an agreement with the state to reach certain levels of carbon reduction by 2030. But right now, state legislation is threatening to completely release Duke Energy from those goals and not require them to hit any carbon reduction goals whatsoever until 2050. And by the way, the original sponsor of this bill, Senator Paul Newton, former Duke Energy executive. They have got the legislation in their pockets. On top of this, the legislation would allow Duke Energy to make customers pay upfront for expensive nuclear energy projects when people across our state are already struggling to pay for increased costs for heat and electricity. This is why we are partnering with organizations like the North Carolina Justice Center and many others to fight this legislation and commit to long-term advocacy to get the North Carolina Utilities Commission to hold Duke Energy accountable. We do this through actions like phone call blitzes and letters to the editor and public comments, and we need everybody in this work. Next, let's talk about community resilience. I know that I do not need to convince you about the importance of developing community resilience against the impacts of climate change right now. As our friends in Western North Carolina continue to recover from Helene, and as our neighbors across the Triangle continue to recover from the impact of Tropical Storm Chantal earlier this month, community preparedness is more important now than ever. And beloveds, we do not know how much longer FEMA will be here for us. Let's tell the truth about that as well. In these times, we must rely on the depth of our relationships with others within our community. We must organize and share our resources and continue to develop locally based disaster response systems to be ready for the next storm. Ready with generators and with satellite Wi-Fi hotspots and with a list of people who own chainsaws. These are the lessons we learned from Helene. I know this congregation knows a thing or two about collecting donations, like on Friday mornings in your parking lot. Are you all ready to be a major drop-off hub for disaster relief to support your fellow congregations in one way, because you don't know which one of your fellow congregations will be hit by the next storm? Are you ready to serve meals to those hit by the hurricane? If meals are served in this space, are you ready, if necessary, beloveds, to even maybe, just maybe if necessary, serve them on non-compostable single-use plates? Are you ready? This is climate justice too. Finally, we need to talk about the work of solidarity with those who are being most directly impacted by climate change. This summer, we are working, UU Justice NC is working very closely with an organization called El Futuro es Nuestro, a group who helps organize migrant farm workers in the state to fight for better working conditions in the brutal North Carolina heat. And we have heard time and time again that when workers get very ill from dehydration and exhaustion in the fields, they keep going. They force themselves to keep going because of the constant verbalized threat by their management that they will either be immediately sent back to their country or not invited back to work the following year. These are the conditions that have led to over 20 farm worker deaths in North Carolina in the past 5 years. These employers are getting away with enforcing inhumane working conditions, banking on the fact that no one notices or cares. And by the way, one of those farm worker employers is a member of the North Carolina General Assembly. We have to notice, we have to care, we have to act. UU Justice NC just wrapped up a 10-day fundraiser where we raised over $5,000 to purchase hydration packets for farm workers to put into their water bottles to keep them safe in this brutal summer heat. Thank you to everyone in UUFR who helped donate to that effort. Next month, in partnership with El Futuro, we're going to need volunteers to drive farm workers to their annual union meeting in North Carolina to fight for workers' rights and better conditions around heat. We must continue to partner with farm worker groups to fight for state and federal heat protections, which, by the way, do not exist. This is a perfect opportunity for collaboration between UUFR's climate justice crew and your immigration and refugee ministry team. Amy Blackwell, are you in the house? Who here is from the immigrant justice team? Right? Here we go. These issues are connected. It does not serve us to operate in silos. We have to understand the intrinsic connection of these issues. And by the way, I invite you all to join us on August 8th at 11 a.m. for Friday Action Hour. That will be our 271st straight week of gathering together, not too shabby, where we will have Julie Taylor, Executive Director of the National Farm Workers Ministry, with us to talk to us about their work and how we can get involved. Oh, it's on Zoom. I'll send you the details. Finally, I want to talk about congregational transformation. I want to invite you to think back, way back, to the time before your congregation had developed what is undoubtedly the gold standard for congregations in North Carolina around recycling and composting in this state. I mean that. I've been to all 28 UU churches, so I'm uniquely positioned to make that statement. Russ gave me these stats this week. In recent years, you have diverted over 34,000 pounds of food waste from landfills by composting. You have reducing your utility carbon footprint by over 50%, and since 2018, through your solar and HVAC investments since 2018. This is absolutely incredible. This required commitment. this required a transformation in how you operate as a congregation. Now is the time to be transformed again. To go beyond the silos of our issue areas, to go beyond the walls of this congregation, to go beyond our comfort zones and the types of justice work and volunteer roles that we are used to. This is the call of our faith. We have the moral responsibility to be a part of a movement in North Carolina transforming power and pipelines and the food industry and labor rights. And in this work, we must know that we are not just fighting against these threats, but we are actively imagining and creating the world that is possible, a world of climate justice. May we inhabit that spirit of creation and possibility in the work ahead. Beloveds, the time is now, and we have a choice to make. Will we be like the father in today's story who denies his own power to go further, to do what is uncomfortable? Will we be like the man who can't imagine that another way is possible? Or will we be like his daughter who can? Friends, it's time to go upstream. May it be so. Amen. I invite you now to please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies, for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures, in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to Thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth.
Our closing words are from Scott Nakagawa. We are the ones who will pivot from defense to offense, from naming our opponents to building our alternatives, from episodic outrage to sustained organizing that wins concrete victories and builds lasting power. The infrastructure exists. The networks are activated. The people are ready. What happened on No King's Day proved that we can mobilize millions. Now we must prove that we can sustain them, organize them, deploy them in the strategic, creative, disciplined resistance that authoritarianism cannot survive. From the moment forward, let June Jordan's words be our rallying cry. Let them remind us that we need not wait for saviors or perfect moments. The South African women who inspired these words didn't wait. The freedom fighters who came before us didn't wait. And neither will we. We are the ones we've been waiting for. The time is now. The people are us. The future is what we make it. Now let's get to work. Amen.